feel that needs to be have the best flow in the game.
Pause there.
So this week I've been redoing the shipbuilder more than most things. It's one of the pieces we feel need the most flow of all the UI. It needs to be clear to the player what they're meant to be clicking, where they're meant to be going, and how they should be able to build the fleet. A lot of the problems we had before was a lot of people were finding it difficult to go back and change their ship, mainly because I added an option to flick between the weapons and the ships. Once you chose the ship, it would change to weapons. I thought this would be better because it would make it a bit more obvious where the player had to go and direct the player, but it seemed to make it a bit more confusing because some of them wanted to just look at the different ships and decide what they wanted to do. So we've changed that. Now it's a bit more clear that when you're changing the ships, we've changed it rather than a drop-down box. Now we've got 2 tabs. So the player can easily change between the weapons and the ships. We've decided now to change the team buttons as well. Rather than being an easy one you can easily do on the page, we want to have the player choose when they load in, being able to then look at a bit more description of what each team does.
So last week we were preparing for our second showing at the pop-up arcade here in Cardiff. So I was over there for the entire weekend, and we actually had quite a few people coming in, a number of people playing the game, a lot of feedback. So a lot of what we've been doing this week has been making sure that everybody's on task to respond to a lot of that feedback. We've made some changes on the days we were there. A lot of progress made on that front. So this week I've been largely working with our sound designers, making sure that we can have some sort of audio feedback for various weapons firing, ships moving, button presses, all the standard sort of things you would expect from an RTS and the various menus that are part of that. Unfortunately, outside of that, the main bit of work that I've actually been doing directly myself is paperwork, business planning, cash flow forecasts, a bunch of really boring stuff to do with numbers.
Starting this week off then, I started working on a new skybox because we were limited to 3 at the moment. So I thought we should have a bit more variation just to keep it a bit more interesting. It's not much like extra, but just is nice to have a bit more. Another thing that I learned from the feedback we had from the pop-up arcade was that the grid lines were currently too spaced out, which I think caused a bit of depth perception issues where people felt like the ship was below the grid in some cases, because the boxes were bigger than the grid itself. So basically I've turned it into the space between them is like 1/9 of what it used to be. I think it's on 1/9 because I had 9. Yeah, it'd be 1/9. So right now then all the ships look bigger in scale because of it as well, which seems to add a bit more of an effect towards that. I had to darken the asteroids too because for some reason it was causing issues where people felt like the asteroids were above the grid and they were trying to avoid it. So by making them darker, it seems to fit more into the background instead of the foreground, which makes it a lot more clear towards the player what it's currently like for level design. Then later on this week I've started working on getting screenshots and renders ready for the UI. I've re-imported all of Courtney's models and pretty much all of them are working except the oceanic battleship right now. But that could be just from a simple wrong upload. Hopefully it's that. Right? Hopefully. So I've been working on trying to get a ship selection option on the menu, where it'll be one side where you pick your fleet before you go into like the actual build your ship. So that way then we can just separate out the factions a lot better than how we have it currently, where it's just a simple button. And it'll add a bit more, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a comparison. It's like in other games when you usually pick like a faction such as StarCraft with Terran, you would pick before you even go into the lobby in the first place, so it's a way of just like instantly knowing what you are, so you can just plan beforehand.
So in the past week I've finished up the textures for the storm ships, all the little details and bits here and there. I then moved on to make sure all the weapons fit all the different mounts, so that's all sorted now. And it's just a matter of naming conventions.
Yes!
just a matter of sorting out naming conventions and making sure everything's in the right folder so it's sort of easy to implement, because I did make a little bit of a mess of my part of the drive folder. So it's a matter of sorting out naming conventions and making sure everything's in the right folder so it's easy to import and that, because I admit I did make a bit of a mess of my part of the drive folder, unfortunately. As for this last week, we want to see about getting the destroyer class ships possibly implemented. So I've turned my focus to them, polishing off the ship models and hopefully putting some base colour textures on them in time. So that's my plan.
So this is the final week. So for final week being so this is the final week, and what we want to be doing now is picking up all the little features that we haven't quite got around to doing yet, and fixing the little bugs which haven't been a major problem yet, as well as a lot of quality of life changes and things like that. So in terms of additions, what I've done is I've been adding in the destroyer ships, which are, they use the old Oceanic corvette ship and the old Storm fighter ship, and they'll only have one weapon on it. It'll be facing forward and only forward, so they've got the 270 degrees behind them, which they will not be able to fire at. The idea for them really is to be backline snipers. Their weapons will be a lot more powerful than each individual one on each ship. That shouldn't be too hard to do. I've got the model set up now, just to change the database and then get Jordan to include it in the UI. So that's basically done. What I'm working on at the moment is ship ramming, which is one thing we wanted to do for a while, and which we've put a couple things on Twitter on it, and it's proving to be a lot more difficult than I thought it would be.